A long time ago, before a time when people knew something about science and could explain all the questions they had by looking it up in books or asking scientists, man and woman and child all still had the questions. They were still curious. So children would ask, why does a raccoon have a, a, a tail with stripes? And why does a porcupine have spines? And why does a zebra have stripes? And why does the sun rise and set every day? Where does it go? And all the kinds of questions that you can think about. And since people were living in small little groups, in igloos and caves and large shelterings, adults made up stories to try and explain the answers to their questions. And those stories became legends and folk tales that got passed down from one generation to another until people started to write down the stories. And then other people made up other stories to explain what they knew children would want. So at one time, you can imagine there were children and adults who wondered how the camel got its hump. And here's the story to explain that. It's written by a man by the name of Rudyard Kipling, who lived in England 150 years ago and then went to India, where he spent a lot of time in the deserts and with wild animals, and he made up stories about the jungles and the deserts. And some of you might have been interested in the books he called the Jungle Books. And a lot of things that Rudyard Kipling wrote about became very famous through scouts and guides and through movies and cartoons made by Walt Disney. There's a cartoon by Walt Disney about Rudyard Kipling and the Jungle Books. But here's his story about how the camel got his hump. In the beginning of time, a long time ago, when the world was so new and all, and the animals were just beginning to be used by man to do jobs, there was a camel, and he lived in the middle of a howling desert because he did not want to work. And besides, he was a howler himself. So he ate sticks and thorns and tamarisks and milkweed and prickles. He was most frustratingly idle. He did absolutely no work. And when anybody spoke to him, he said, just and no more. In other words, he didn't care. Presently, a horse came to him on a Monday morning with a saddle on his back and a bit in his mouth and said, Camel, come out and trot like the rest of us and do some work. Said the camel, and the horse went away and told the man. Next time, the dog came to him with a stick in his mouth and said, Camel, come and fetch and carry like the rest of us and play with the man. Said the camel, and the dog went away to tell the man. Then the ox came to him with the yoke on his neck, around his neck, and said, Camel, come and help us plow like the rest of us have to do. Said the camel, and the ox went away and told the master. At the end of the day, the man, the master, called the horse and the dog and the ox together and said, You three, I'm very sorry for you, with the world so new and all. But that thing in the desert can't work, or he would have been here by now. So I am going to just leave him alone. You must work double time to make up for it. That made the three of them very angry with the world so new and all, and they had a powwow and a conversation and an indaba and a panchayat on the edge of the desert. And the camel came chewing milkweed and laughed at them and said, "You can try all you want, but as far as I'm concerned, it's all..." And he walked away. Presently, soon along came a jinn, a magician in charge of all deserts, rolling in a cloud of dust. Jinns always travel that way because it's magic. And he stopped to have a conversation and a powwow with the three other animals. Jinn of all the deserts, said the horse, is it right and proper for anyone to be idle with the world so new and all? Certainly not, said the Jinn. Well, said the horse, there's a thing in the middle of your howling desert, and he's a howler himself, with a long neck and long legs, and he hasn't done a single bit of work since Monday. He won't trot, he won't plow, he won't fetch. Whoo, said the Jinn, whistling. That's my camel. What does he say about it? He says, said the dog, and he won't fetch and carry. He only says, and he won't plow, said the ox. Very good, said the Jinn. I'll him, right? I'll him if you will kindly wait a minute. The Jinn rolled up in his dust cloak and took a bearing across the desert. The Jinn found the camel looking at his own reflection in a pool of water. My long and bubbling friend, said the Jinn, what's this I hear of you not doing any work with the world so new and all? Said the camel. The Jinn sat down and with his chin in his hand and began to think a great magic while the camel looked at his own reflection in the pool of water. You've given the three of them, the horse, the ox, and the dog, extra work ever since Monday morning, all on account of your idleness, said the Jinn. And he went on thinking magics with his chin in his hand like this. Said the camel. I shouldn't say that again if I were you, said the Jinn. You might say it once too often. I want you to work. And the camel said, again. But no sooner had he said it than he saw his back, that he was so proud of, puffing up into a great big lolloping humps. Do you see that? Said the Jinn. That's your own humph that you've brought upon yourself by not working. Today is Thursday, and you've done no work since Monday when the work began. Now you're going to work. And the became a hump. How can I, said the camel, with this humph of mine on my back? That's made on purpose, said the Jinn. All because you missed those 3 days. You will be able to work now for 3 days without eating or drinking because you can live on your hump. Don't you ever say I did anything for you. Come out of the desert and go to the three and behave. And the camel humphed himself, humph, and went away to join the three. And from that day to this, the camel always wears his humph, which we call a hump now, not to hurt his feelings. but he has never yet caught up with the 3 days that he missed at the beginning of the world, and he has never yet learned how to behave. And the Arabs say that the camel is a very nasty animal and does nasty things, and they have to train the camels. So the camel's being paid back for not being nice and helping from the beginning.